It's nerds versus jocks in Revenge of the Nerds, with hilarious all-out war on campus. Released in the summer of 1984, Revenge of the Nerds tells the story of two nerdy best friends, Lewis and Gilbert, played by Robert Shoot the Pickle Carradine, and Anthony Edwards, aka Goose from Top Gun, where they move to a new college together. However, Lewis and Gilbert, along with their other socially awkward classmates, continuously get bullied and harassed by the Alpha Betas fraternity. Sick of the constant harassment and unable to get into their own fraternities, the group of nerds form their own fraternity, Tri-Labs, where they set out to get revenge on the Alpha Betas and teach them not to mess with nerds in this raunchy, rude, crude, and enjoyably outrageous comedy. Revenge of the Nerds is kind of like Animal House of the 80s, only it's set in present day. And I think it resonates with people, as I think most of us at one stage has been that kid who was picked on by the bigger, cooler kids. And it's a satisfying premise of getting even with those that try to bully you and put you down. So with that, 10 things that you didn't know about Revenge of the Nerds. Number 10, the most memorable nerd was hesitant to star in the movie. Although he wasn't the main character in the movie, the nerd who stands out the most is probably Booger, who was played by Curtis Armstrong. 1 year before Revenge of the Nerds, Armstrong starred in fellow outrageous teen comedy Risky Business alongside Tom Cruise, and after that movie wrapped up, he was looking for his next job, where the script to Revenge of the Nerds came his way. And although he loved the script, he was reluctant to star in the movie as Booger was really underdeveloped, making him more of a background character that said the odd line here and there. In order to play the part, Armstrong set out to fully flesh out this character. He even wrote a one-page biography of Booger, which pretty much ended up being a retelling of his own life. And in addition to that, he improvised a lot of his lines while filming, so Armstrong brought a lot of himself to the role, and Revenge of the Nerds is a better movie for it. The irony is, Booger started off as a character with hardly any lines, to a character with arguably the best lines. Number 9, protests from campus. Revenge of the Nerds was filmed at Arizona University, and because the movie explores the college Greek system, aka fraternities and sororities, the College of Arizona's Greek officials threatened to shut down the movie's production, thinking that the movie was way too inappropriate and was another Animal House, which, to be fair, it kind of was. Despite the fear that Revenge of the Nerds would give the college Greek system a bad name, director Jeff Canu was able to save the day, as he met up with the officials and told them that although Revenge of the Nerds has its outrageous jokes, it's essentially a story about the rise of the underdog. And I suppose after Rocky, everyone loves a story about an underdog standing triumphant. He further explained that he would have no hesitation to letting his kids go and see Revenge of the Nerds. So this eased everyone's worries and fears, and filming was allowed to continue on college grounds. Hooray! Number 8, creating Poindexter. Just as with Booger, the character Poindexter was really underdeveloped in the original script. The character was played by Timothy Busfield, and originally the character was so underdeveloped, when Busfield had to audition for the role, he had to read lines written for the Lamar character, to which during his audition he even danced to Michael Jackson's Beat It. Poindexter originally wasn't even called Poindexter. Originally the character was called Lipschultz, named after Revenge of the Nerds prop guy. The name had to be changed as the prop guy wasn't too crash hot on the idea of one of the nerds using his name, so Poindexter it was. The character originally supposedly only had one line, and was simply described as being a nerd with a violin who looks like Henry Kissinger. And like Curtis Armstrong with Booger, Busfield had to realise and work on his character. He parted his hair and put on a suit that he bought from a thrift store, which apparently is the suit that we see him wear in the film, and thus more layers and dimensions were added to the character of Poindexter. I'm getting a sense that not only was Revenge of the Nerds' success in its writing, but also the actors who played the parts. as it seems that several of them worked on developing the characters, making them more funny and interesting rather than being just background characters. Number 7. The presence of one of the alphas led to parties on set. The movie's main villain, Stan Gable, was played by former Happy Days and future Married with Children star Ted McGinley. McKinley was cast after the director, Jeff Canoe, saw him on the cover of a college calendar being sold at a bookstore at the College of Arizona and felt that he had the right look for the handsome but conniving smug character. However, although the Stan character may have been a turd on screen, having McKinley on board actually led to many fun parties on set, as he was popular with young female fans, of whom would often turn up on set and watch dailies with the rest of the cast and crew, to which parties would often break out, where the cast and crew would crack open some beers and a fun time for all ensued. McKinley said that he was kind of embarrassed to be starring in a movie called Revenge of the Nerds. In fact, I read a few articles stating that several actors involved weren't exactly thrilled with the movie's title, but despite that tension, he said it was a lot of fun making the movie with lots of fun parties. Number 6. Living the nerd life. Before getting possessed by the Tommyknockers, actor Robert Carradine played Lewis in Revenge of the Nerds, the main protagonist of the movie, and he was so committed to the role and really wanted to get into the character so much, before filming he enrolled at the University of Arizona and attended in his full nerdy costume as seen in the movie, basically playing the character while living on campus. In other words, before filming even began, he was already playing the part of Lewis. Although being a nerd on campus probably took its toll on the actor, as he supposedly didn't leave his hotel room for 3 days. Despite nowadays where it's kind of cool and trendy to be nerdy, back in the humble days of 1984, being a nerd in a teenage or young adult setting was kind of like having plague. It was basically all downhill from there. Oh, how times have changed. Number 5. A very happy camel helped with the famous belch. A memorable moment in Revenge of the Nerds is when a belching contest takes place between the Booger character and the ogreish beta character called, Ogre, where Booger proves his nerdy superiority by delivering one loud and epic burp. It may come as no surprise, but actor Curtis Armstrong didn't really do such a wonderful burp, but the belch sound effect was actually dubbed in. What is surprising is where the sound effect came from. According to Armstrong, the production was trying to find the right soundbite to incorporate for the epic belch, where they found a sound recording of a camel, a camel, groaning while in the act of coitus. In other words, it's the sound of a camel getting its rocks off while getting some fun loving. The unlikely sound was mixed in with the sound of a real human burp, and voila, we get Booger's epic belch. So if you're ever making a movie and need a sound effect, turn your attentions to the Discovery Channel. Number 4. Spanish title change. The word nerd is not something unheard these days. Hey, that rhymed. It's everywhere, and nearly everyone on the planet is probably aware of the term nerd and what it means. But maybe not so much back in 1984, as when the movie was released in Spain, the word nerd hadn't been discovered yet, at least not for a few years anyway. So for its Spanish release, the title was changed to Revenge of the Freshmans. Revenge of the Freshmans doesn't have quite the same comedic effect as Revenge of the Nerds, but it's easy to see why it was changed. But in all seriousness, what about the nerd laugh that we hear throughout the movie? I wonder if it was referred to as the freshman laugh. Speaking of that laugh, it was actor James Cromwell, who played Lewis's father, who claims to have invented that laugh.
You got a great sense of humor.
He supposedly improvised it on set, and while driving home after the take, he realised that he got the laugh from his ex-wife who used to laugh like that. Wow. Camels, ex-wives. If there was ever a remake of Revenge of the Nerds, I wonder where they would be getting the sounds from for the new version. However, there never was a plan to remake this movie, right? Right? Number 3. Filming a remake had started but was shut down. Although Revenge of the Nerds managed to churn out a whopping 3 sequels, it seemed that by 1994's made-for-TV Revenge of the Nerds 4 Nerds in Love, the franchise had lost its spark. However, seeing how we're living in the day and age of remakes, not only was a remake planned, but its shoot had even started. Yeah, the movie was even cast and everything. And 2 weeks worth of filming was filmed at a college in Atlanta, Georgia in 2006, with the remake having an intended 2007 release. However, there were difficulties with filming and studio executives were unimpressed with the footage shot, so the production was shut down entirely, with 20th Century Fox claiming that the remake is unlikely to be picked up, so I guess we were spared another remake. Although I do feel sorry for the cast and crew whose 2 weeks of work failed to no outcome. But hey, don't remake classics, make something original. Also, a pilot for a planned Revenge of the Nerds TV series was filmed in 1991. Yes, long before the failed remake, there was another attempt to breathe new life into the Revenge of the Nerds franchise with a 1991 TV pilot, but the pilot was never aired. The pilot does what a lot of TV show versions of movies did back in the day, and recast characters with people who look like the original actors, but you can just tell it's not them, which stands out like a sore thumb. That and Revenge of the Nerds is meant to be rude and raunchy. Having a diet soda, toned down version for TV probably wouldn't have worked, hence the pilot was never aired, leaving it as an obscure chapter in the franchise's history. Number 2, one of the screenings was a disaster. Revenge of the Nerds had a test screening in Las Vegas, in which it got a very positive reception, so it seemed that things were looking very promising for Revenge of the Nerds. However, the movie then had a screening in Dallas, to which, well, it didn't go down too well. The audience appreciation had a massive decrease, and it didn't really hit it off with the Dallas test audiences, who clearly didn't seem to like it. This actually affected the movie's release, as supposedly 20th Century Fox lost confidence in Revenge of the Nerds, and thus cut both marketing and the amount of screenings to show the movie, fearing that it would be a failure, which means that Revenge of the Nerds may have slipped past without many people going to see it or even be aware of its existence. But evidently, that didn't happen. It just goes to show that a test screening can either make or break a movie. Just going off topic here, but let's not forget that there is also the candy called Nerds, which consists of little tiny sugar balls, which are flavoured usually with grape and strawberry, and the product is owned by the Willy Wonka company. The candy has also been around for ages and were quite huge in Australia back in the day. In fact, some might say that Nerds was a staple of Australian childhood memories. Number 1. Success against all odds. Revenge of the Nerds had a relatively low budget, sitting somewhere between $6 to $8 million, which is quite low for a studio movie. And with the added pressure of having its screening and marketing cut, it would seem that Revenge of the Nerds was destined for failure. However, the Nerds stood triumphant, as Revenge of the Nerds was actually quite successful, with its popularity increasing and growing during its box office run, probably thanks to word of mouth, as the movie would go on to make over $60 million, including rentals. Naturally, Revenge of the Nerds was ripped apart by critics, because let's face it, it was never going to be a film that critics liked. But surprisingly, Siskel and Ebert, of all people, seemed to love it, calling it a sweet and gentle movie. No joke, their review is online, check it out. Siskel said that it had a wonderful inspirational message that nerds are people too. He even called the title wonderful. I fully expected to see these guys tear the movie apart when I saw their review, but no, they loved it. I guess when all's said and done, Revenge of the Nerds is about downtrodden people sticking together and standing up to those that try to put them down. Standing up to the hierarchy and coming out victorious. The story about a group of shy, awkward dweebs who decided they weren't going to be pushed around and humiliated anymore. And I think that that is where the biggest appeal comes from with Revenge of the Nerds. Revenge of the Nerds is just one of those wacky, over-the-top, boundary-pushing comedies of the 1980s. If you liked movies like Weird Science and National Lampoon's Vacation, then Revenge of the Nerds is right up your alley. However, some of the jokes may not be for the faint of heart, particularly with modern audiences. I know that in hindsight, some people have issues with the notorious moon room scene, which, yeah, I understand. But if you can accept that it's just a movie and not real and love outrageous comedies, then you'll no doubt find Revenge of the Nerds to be really enjoyable. Anyway, I'm Minty, and I was going to end this episode with the nerd laugh, but I don't know how to, so yeah, that's really ruined that. See ya!